Day 172 of 366, and it's Thursday, the 20th of June. Many thanks for joining us for tonight's Primetime News Edition, where we bring to the fore happenings shaping the domestic, continental and international fronts. It's always a pleasure having you. I'm Michael Madimba. We lead tonight's bulletin with the visit of Denis Francis, President of the 78th session of the UN General Assembly, who is currently in Namibia for a 3-day visit at the invitation of Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Dr. P.M. Shilinga. Now, earlier today, Francis paid a courtesy call on President Nangolo Mbumba at State House. Our primetime news correspondent, Lina Dishina, was part of the engagement and filed our lead report.
We were looking at the UN as the ultimate position, that the UN is in at the ultimate position to guarantee peace, to promote freedom and independence, and that one of the biggest honor a person can have is to be an official in one of the UN agencies. Leadership.
But I say to people, the UN is not some esoteric being or building out there on the East River in New York. The UN is the 193 member states that make it up. And it is those states, when they want to do things that they know would be a violation either of the law or of the principles, it is those states that create the problems. The UN is not the problem. The UN is part of the solution.
Turning attention to Namibia's road to the CS elections. The Electoral Commission of Namibia, or ECN, has registered a cumulative total of 366,036 eligible Namibians since the commencement of the general registration of voters. The registration period began on the 3rd of June and is set to conclude on the 1st of August 2024. In a media statement issued on Wednesday, the ECN reported that this figure includes those registered as voters within the country and at all Namibian diplomatic missions abroad as of the 15th of June 2024. The Primetime News crew visited the voter registration station in Eros Windhoek to gauge the situation on the ground. Let's now take a look.
The statement added that the figure represents an average of 29,918 voters registered per day between 10 and 15 June 2024. While urging all eligible Namibian citizens who have not yet registered to do so, the Electoral Commission of Namibia said the general registration of voters continues across the country and at all Namibian diplomatic missions around the world until 1 August 2024 between Monday and Saturday from 8 until 1900 hours. The Namibia Press Agency spoke to 2 registered voters on the importance of voting, and this is what they had to say.
I think the voting is very important. Every vote counts. So you get a lot of people who's moaning and groaning about stuff that's happening, but if you ask them, did you vote, then they say no, they didn't vote. So I think the voting is very important. Every vote counts. So yeah.
The importance of voting is we need to vote this time. It's my second time of voting, and I've realized that it's very important now to vote for a change, to make a change.
On to neighboring South Africa, where President Cyril Ramaphosa hailed the formation of a broad coalition government as the beginning of a new era. This comes as he was sworn in for a second full term after the general elections resulted in no outright winner, a first in 30 years. We now bring you an insert of his inauguration speech.
As we enter another era in the life of our nation, the resilience of our democracy has once more been tested, and the people have spoken loudly. that they choose peace and democracy over conflict, violence, undemocratic and unconstitutional methods. And so today, my fellow South Africans, is no ordinary day. It is a moment of fundamental consequence in the life of our nation. It is a moment when we must choose to either move forward together or risk losing all we have built. In this moment, we must choose to move forward, to close the distances between South Africans and to build a more equal society, to translate the promise of our Constitution and the vision of the Freedom Charter into a reality for all. This moment requires extraordinary courage and leadership. It requires a common mission to safeguard national unity, peace, stability, inclusive economic growth, non-racialism, and non-sexism.
On to updates from the Middle East. Navi Pillay, head of the Independent Commission of Inquiry on the Israel-Hamas war, said Israel has obstructed the Commission's investigations. Pillay echoed the sentiments after the presentation of a report accusing Israel of crimes against humanity and Hamas of war crimes. Pillay further said the Commission's safeguarding of evidence has been hampered. AFP brings us more context.
Israel has obstructed the Commission's investigations and prevented its access not only to Israel and Gaza, but to the occupied Palestinian territory. So it's true that our work in the investigation, collection, and safeguarding of evidence has been hampered.
The fact that the person who represented the State of Israel was the mother of a hostage is also extremely important. You know, that was the first time we've had an opportunity to talk and hear directly, face to face, from one of the family members of hostages. We hope desperately that we can have further contact with Ms. Gonen and members of her family and hostages who have been released. We have asked repeatedly for that. We have called for it in public statements. The only thing standing between that occurring and us being able to gather the evidence is the obstruction coming from the State of Israel. Understanding is not justification. Understanding doesn't mean that the commission of a war crime or the commission of a crime against humanity is under any circumstances justifiable. But we've got to understand why this has occurred if we are interested in stopping it from happening again. And that to me is the key point here. This has happened time and time and time again, and this is the worst ever. This is the highest death toll ever in this protracted period of warfare.
This is what we had for you in tonight's top segment. Stay tuned for your top roundup and the business segment thereafter. Welcome to the Primetime Biz segment, your premier source for all things business related. The Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, or NIPDB, in collaboration with the First National Bank of Namibia, on Wednesday hosted the third annual Technovation Social under the theme, Bringing Creators and Customers Together. Now, this year's edition featured exhibitions from 21 micro, small and medium enterprises and the creative and culture industry. Vice President Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah officiated the event. We now bring you an insert of the Vice President's keynote address.
It is with great joy that I stand before you today to celebrate the vibrancy and significance of Namibia's culture and creative industry. Our nation, rich in history and diverse in its cultural heritage, innovation and artists expressed, will always inspire us today and in the future. Culture and creativity shapes our narratives, define our values, and provide us with a sense of belonging. I strongly believe that in addition to our main economic sectors, namely mining, fishing industry, and agriculture, we need to include sports and the creative industry. And I strongly believe on that. As to me, these are engines of economic growth and social development, and the creative industry has a great potential to job creation, which we need for our youth or the young growing population.
On to some local financial sector updates. Bank of Namibia Governor Johannes Gavakab on Wednesday revealed during the first quarter of the 2024-25 financial year, Namibia's merchandise trade deficit increased to 13.5 billion Namibian dollars, up from 9.1 billion Namibian dollars in the same period of the previous financial year. He attributed the widening deficit to a decrease in export earnings. More from this report.
Domestic economic activity increased during the first 4 months of 2024. Inflation slowed year to date but edged higher since the previous MPC meeting, while the growth in private sector credit extension remained subdued. The merchandise trade deficit widened while the stock of international reserves remains sufficient to support the currency peg and meet the country's international financial obligations. Domestic economic activity expanded further during the first 4 months of this year. This increase in output was mainly from the mining, electricity generation, wholesale and retail trade, tourism, communication and transport sectors. Looking ahead, the growth in Namibia's real gross domestic product is projected to moderate from 4.2% in 2023 to 3.7% in 2024 due to the anticipated slowdown in the primary industry, partly as a result of the drought conditions.
This is what made our top segment for tonight. As now we look at tomorrow's countrywide weather conditions in the weather forecast, followed up by a roundup of the latest economic news and the Sport Planet segment. Welcome to Sport Planet, the slot dedicated to all things sport in action. We commence with Euro 2024 updates. France boasts fearsome strength and depth, but remain hugely reliant on Kylian Mbappe for inspiration, and are now facing the prospect of being without their injured superstar for at least their next Euro 2024 game against the Netherlands on Friday. Captain Mbappe is recovering from a broken nose suffered in Monday's 1-0 win over Austria in Dusseldorf in their opening match at the Football Feast. The new Real Madrid signing, who forced the own goal by Maximilian Wuber, which decided the game, was badly hurt in a collision with Austrian defender Kevin Danso and had to be replaced by Olivier Giroud. The French Football Federation later said Mbappe would not need an operation, but did admit he would need to be fitted with a mask before he could return to action. In any case, the lack of time between matches means the clash with the Dutch in Leipzig is set to come too soon for the 25-year-old. On to an update from the English Premier League. Leicester City have appointed former Nottingham Forest boss Steve Cooper as a new manager. The newly promoted Premier League club revealed earlier today. The club in a statement noted, quote-unquote, Leicester City Football Club can today confirm the appointment of Steve Cooper as our new first team manager ahead of the 2024-25 Premier League season. Steve has agreed a 3-year contract. Cooper fills the vacuum left by Enzo Maresca, who left for the vacant post at Chelsea earlier this month. 44-year-old Maresca had steered 2016 Premier League champions Leicester back to the Premier League after just one season in the Championship. Stay tuned for your sports roundup. This concludes the Thursday edition of Primetime News. Many thanks for having made a date with us. Do make time to join us tomorrow for another engaging edition as we wrap up the week that was. Before I sign off, a reminder to follow the on-screen prompts and subscribe to the Number TV platform to stay updated on developments shaping the global village. Feel free to add your thoughts in the comment section. We indeed value your viewership. That's it from myself, Michael Medimba, and the collective production crew behind the scenes. Take care and good night.